guys, some Gamer Dude here. So a few days ago, I talked about Dragon Ball Super while opening some cards. I wanted to go back to this because I not only want to show you the table that showed how things are lining up, but I wanted to talk more about Dragon Ball Super because it's very interesting in that it had a lot of things going against it, yet here we are. So first things first, I've got the table in front of you. The Keyforge and D&D icons of the realm aren't really relevant to this discussion because neither of which are TCGs, which, as I said, puts Dragon Ball Super up to number 4 TCG. It also puts Transformers up to number 5 and Vanguard up to number 6, which means Vanguard's actually doing, well, it's not doing better by changing the perspective because as the whole collectible games, there's a fair few things selling better than it, including D&D minis and Keyforge, but it looks better in terms of raw TCGs. But after Star Wars Destiny, how many other TCGs are there really? It's just Buddy Fight and Force of Will, both of which are irrelevant, one of which is a shambling corpse that doesn't realize it's dead yet, which is Force of Will. The last set didn't even profit. I don't know what other TCGs there are on the market right now. That Bible game, I think, is that still going? That's how small the market is. Oh, Weiss Schwartz. I forgot Weiss Schwartz exists. People kept telling. I've got to get around to looking up Weiss Schwartz because I had a really nice comment to tell me to look it up, and I really got to get around to it. I like doing things that commenters tell me because it gives me avenues to go. So, again, I want to talk about Dragon Ball Super, mostly how it did so well. So, let's start from the beginning. When Dragon Ball Super was first shown off, it looked like a bog standard, crappy Duel Masters knockoff. Okay? That's just what it looked like when we first saw it. When we looked at the card ass, I think that's what it was in Japan, edition of it. That's the line that Bandai calls all their cards in Japan. I think they've called it that in a few times in the West, card ass. I don't know why it's card ass, but that's what it's called. Yeah, we'll try not to snicker and laugh like children. It's probably some Japanese thing. It killed the Panini game, which I'm going to be really honest. As much as I have nostalgia for the original Score game, I don't think was any great loss to the world. I don't think we're any worse off for not having the Panini game in existence. And when it was announced, a lot of people were really dubious because it was being handled by Bandai. And Bandai's had a really bad track record with card games. Look under the floorboards, there's a lot of corpses under there. That's how bad it is. The first corpse I can remember is the old Digimon Hyper Colosseum game, or whatever they called it in English. It only lasted a few sets, had horrible printing runs where things were misprinted. Really beautiful card art if you like the Bandai Digimon art. But the game was a confusing mess. Really hard to comprehend in a lot of ways. I never understood it. And apparently it was changed from the Japanese version, but it never did too well and just kind of went plop. The After that, it's what's their next corpse? One Piece, which my friend played very heavily for the 2 sets that was around. He played it to bits, but in retrospect, he says it was a pile of puke. There's some Gundam games there, multiple Gundam games from what I understand. There's of course Naruto, which eventually became a corpse because rotation happened in a game that didn't really want it. For all of you screaming for Yu-Gi-Oh to have a rotation, or any of these games that allow long-term legacy support, uh, probably unless you do it like Vanguard, where you're just like, you know what, complete reboot. We'll have an extended format reboot. Which honestly, I think Score's Dragon Ball GT was kind of anyway. Unless you pull it off really well like Vanguard did, and again make it a reboot. I wouldn't bother with the rotation. It's just going to piss people off like Bandai did with Naruto. There's of course the Naruto clone uh, engine repurpose. that was Dragon Ball themed, which I think only lasted for 3 or 4 sets. There's been more Digimon games, ones based on fusion and whatnot. And there's, of course, the Power Rangers game, which I think lasted all of 1 set. But to be quite frank, and this is going to be really honest, the only games that they've made it that are good were Naruto and Dragon Ball Super, both of which took off on the merits of their gameplay. And now Chrono Clash seems to be doing pretty well for itself. Uh, the interest in it seems to be climbing and climbing, which is pretty good for what it is. I mean, it's harder to get interest in living card games than it is TCGs, but it's getting there. I've still got to get around to playing it though. Really looking forward to that. But with Dragon Ball Super, you have the Panini problem, you have the Bandai problem. Yet people tried it out, and as I said, I think I did a review of it a long time ago. It looks like Duel Masters. It smells like Duel Masters. It also takes aspects. Well, a lot of card games use double-sided cards, but as far as I see it as association, the double-sided character card you play as is Force of Will. Yet the game plays like Vanguard. It plays like an improved Vanguard. It plays like someone took Vanguard um, and tried to make it better. And this isn't to say Vanguard's bad or Vanguard has massive problems. It's just that the introduction of spell cards and the extra cards, and not having to ride up, and having honestly a cost system that's more direct, and not having to lock the deck into certain cards because the deck construction is a lot more like Duel Masters or any other Magic clone. Um, it changes the game so much, despite having those core Vanguard mechanics. It feels like an evolution, I would say. And I wonder how much of this is siphoning interest in Vanguard. Because, again, look the difference between the two. Plus, Dragon Ball Super, I don't think Vanguard's sold in normal stores anymore. At least it isn't here. I don't know if you can go into your Walmart or that and find Vanguard in the States. But Dragon Ball Super is super easy to find here. It's not sold at like Big W, Kmart, or Target, but any EB Games slash Zing, which is our GameStop and Think Geek, or Game Traders, which is more of an independent version of pop culture store. So they have it, and they have tons of it. All your card stores have a lot of it. Vanguard's really hard to find now. You have to go searching for it. It's not commonly stocked, and stores are just kind of, if you ask for it, we'll get it in, but we don't really. Which is weird because, as I've said multiple times, I actually think the reboot is pretty good. But again, I wonder how much of the interest in the reboot Dragon Ball Super has siphoned off. But in the same breath, the weird thing with Dragon Ball Super is it doesn't really feel like Dragon Ball. This is something I keep bringing up. This is something the score game did amazingly well, but the score game was very poorly made in every single version of it. Maybe GT, and that's GT. People do not like GT. The Dragon Ball Super game doesn't really feel like you are Goku fighting someone. It feels like you are Goku summoning your friends because Goku is a wizard now. It's weird. It's really, really weird. But, and I think this is why my best friend really doesn't like the game because the flavor feels like, what is this? What? This doesn't make any sense. But from a person that appreciates more the mechanical sides of games, I'm just sitting there thinking this is really good. This is really enjoyable. And I think there's a lot of people that can appreciate it more from the mechanical side than the flavor side. Because again, the flavor side is such a flavor fail, it's not funny, but the mechanical side is wonderful. I also think it's interesting that Bandai is making such a big deal about the anniversaries because for most card games, if they survive 2 years, that means that they're probably going to stay around for a while until they make a massive blunder. It has to be super massive, much bigger than anything Magic the Gathering's done. A lot of people say Magic the Gathering's too big to fail, but if they do something colossally boneheaded, it's gonna hurt them really bad. And I think I've got a video talking about this later. Some of my opinions on Magic, but Magic has a hard time keeping players around, but giving them what they want and supporting things they have. Rotation is part of that problem. For everyone who really likes rotation because it freshens up the meta, which it does, it also takes away people's interest in the game, which is a bad thing because they can't use their favorites. Yes, power creep and whatnot means that they can't use their favorites competitively either, but that's why support and that for legacy decks exists. It's a vicious little cycle. Um, as I said, Bandai is really, really proud of the fact Dragon Ball Super's gone around 2 years now and is sold very easily, etc., etc. They've done a really bang up job at helping a lot of people get their favorite characters. There's still a lot of characters to go. I do not have my Chi Chi leader. Where is my Chi Chi leader? Or Videl? 18 doesn't have one. You know who else I'd like? Garlic Jr. I wouldn't mind Garlic Jr. Is Turles a card yet? See, we have so many characters to still go. Um, I don't think Launch even has a card, and we're like nearly 10 sets in, and they've done Dragon Ball. There's no Commander Red or Staff Officer Black. There's no what was Blue again? Was he Captain Blue, Commander Blue, General Blue? General Blue. He was General Blue. I don't care much for the Red Ribbon Army saga, other than the part with the Native Americans and Corin's Tower, because I like Upa. But yeah, um, they actually I think there are cards with Upa and his dad. I think one of them's banned. Uh, they've been keeping on the ban list. They do try to explain things. They've got their lead designer going around. They're doing a lot of things right. The cards are beautiful, high quality cards. They make the big three look like trash. Um, I've really got to go back and fill some Vanguard cards because I think they might actually be a little bit better than those. And Vanguard was considered very high quality when it was released. Actually, the Naruto cards, I held them recently, they hold up fairly well too. But yeah, I'm curious where Dragon Ball Super is going to go now. They still have a lot of content to cover. They've not straying away from redoing the same content to go back and do something new with it, which is pretty cool. They're introducing only now 8 sets in dual color cards and cards that are restricted to mono color decks. Um, Lots of cool things. I don't know how long Dragon Ball Super will stay around because, well, licensed games do typically have a shelf life, but we have the master license holder doing it. It's really involved in terms of the effort put into it, and it's Dragon Ball. Uh, for all the things about Naruto dying, people forget that as Naruto Shippuden came into existence, the interest in Naruto really waned. It just started to peter away, and um, no one really cares that the dub's finished now. Did you know the dub of Shippuden just finished? Do you care? This is how ultimately irrelevant Naruto is now, despite back in its day being by far one of the most popular shonen of all time. It's really an irrelevant franchise now, to be quite honest. I'm sure it still sells, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that still really like it, like myself, or like aspects of it, but Shippuden didn't really click as well as the original series did. The writing was very poor for a lot of it, and frankly, the series should have stopped at the Pain fights. Pain should have been the end of it. Toby shouldn't have been thing that was dealt with afterwards and went into the whole stupid Ninja War crap. But Dragon Ball's always been popular and it's always maintained that popularity. I think some of it helps that it actually ended, or despite people having very negative opinions on the Buu saga, I like the Buu saga. I actually prefer it to the Frieza fight. God, that's a controversial opinion. Um, let me just explain myself. I like the twists and turns in the Boo saga. I think it keeps it interesting. It keeps the viewer on their toes. A lot of people see it as garbage writing. I see it as interesting. The Frieza saga, on the other hand, really obvious ways things are going to go as soon as they start fighting Frieza, and I find the Ginyu Force a complete chore to watch or read. The part before that, the actual search on Namek, I really like it. I love that dynamic. I love going back to the search for the Dragon Balls thing and having to avoid Frieza. But as soon as the Ginyu Force turns up, the only real thing that the franchise, well, the saga, the story arc has left is the Super Saiyan transformation. And after that, it's like, okay, let's get to Trunks. And actually, Cell has similar problems where after Cell turns up, you kind of know how the rest of the storyline's going to go because it's been building up to it. The the Buu Saga doesn't have that really obvious end. Did you really think that it'd end with a spirit bomb? No, we thought it'd end with Ultimate Gohan or Vegito, but no, it didn't. And I actually like that. I actually had a comment given to me by a YouTuber privately when I said this somewhere, saying, "Well, if you think this is a good end, watch my video on why it's bad." And I'm like, dude, it's just an opinion. It's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. It's not like I'm going around beating people up for not liking the Boo saga. That'd be stupid. But actually, they've done a lot of the Boo saga in Dragon Ball Super, and I really like a lot of them because there's one Boo that turns into Kid Boo, and then there's a Super Boo that turns into Kid Boo. I think it's really neat like that. Anyway, enough of my ravening on. All the power, as I said before, all the power to Bandai in the world. They're doing a bang up job with it. I think it's a quality game, and I hope it stays around for a while. I think the Dragon Ball license will probably keep it around a lot longer than Naruto did. On virtue of that alone, it's got 20 more sets to go. Well, 20 more main sets, I should say, before it surpasses Naruto. I think somewhere in the vicinity of 18 to surpass Naruto when the extra sets are concerned. But I think it could. And people are really crying out for a new Dragon Ball Super, a new Dragon Ball Super movie. I think that'd help the game get a lot more content. Uh, they're just getting around to the Saiyan Saga now. In set, what is it, 7 and 8? They're just getting around to the Saiyan Saga. We haven't really seen the Red Ribbon Army. There's not that much of King Piccolo around from what I've seen. And the tournament with Ten Shinhan, which is actually one of my favorite tournaments in Dragon Ball. I really like the whole storyline with Ten Shinhan because I like those with kung fu type stories with the arrogant kung fu villain guy and the hero's got to overcome him and show them the error of his ways and his arrogance and etc etc. Uh, Anyway, I've been talking for a while now, and we got talking about more, well, Dragon Ball things than actually talking about the card game. So, yeah, if you'd actually like Dragon Ball Super content, well, I don't know where I'd go because I'm pretty far away from understanding a lot of the nuances of the current meta, but we can document my travels to understanding the game as a whole. That'd be I don't think that'd make riveting content, do you? Anyway, this has been some Gamer Dude. Thanks for listening to me for 20 plus minutes, and I'll see you guys next video.